Okay, welcome to this infoodle run through of the new feature that we're putting in place, which will be for these run sheets. This process here is in beta testing at the moment, and so we appreciate those of you who are taking a look at this and really value your feedback. There are, of course, a number of ideas that we would like to consider incorporating, but we want to get some feedback from you first just to see how we're progressing along the lines. But what you have now should be sufficient to be able to at least start the process. The goal of what we're trying to achieve here is to give you the ability to plan and run your events, be your services or whatever, with the intention of keeping as many of people as possible involved and informed of what's happening and give them the tools that they need to be able to operate this. So what we're going to do today is to go through the steps of building a run sheet or a program, and from there we'll see the screens as they work. So in order to set things up, there are some one optional feature, which is the ability to incorporate the library. I've already configured the library for our purposes here. We've got a music library and there's a set list of songs there. If you don't have the library, that's fine. You don't need to have the library module, the docs module. This will enable you to provide, if you have got it, it'll enable you to provide the files for your musicians to be able to use. But if you don't, then that's fine. It'll just be a notification. You'll see how that operates. So here we can see we've got a couple of songs that are being configured. Within those songs, we've got a PDF sheet that will have all the keys and chords in it, and we'll have an MP3 in this case. For Cornerstone here, we've got a PDF as well and an MP3, but we've also got the lyrics in here as well. So that lyrics allows us to do transposition if we wanted to. So it's again, it's up to you if you want to include that. So, but it can be helpful, certainly from the MP3 and the PDFs side of things. So that's an optional step, but you can get that set up if you wanted to. The next thing that we need is an event. So because we are organizing an event or planning an event, then it makes sense for this to hang off an event. So going into our event screen, and in order to access these run sheets at all, you'll need to have access to the events module. So we're going to add an event, and this event is going to be called Monday Meeting, for sake of a better word. And the key piece of information that we need obviously is the date that we're going to start this. So we need a date, and we're going to pick the 3rd of June. And then these 4 pieces of information in terms of the timings are used by the run sheets themselves. So this is saying, when do you want the room from? So arguably that's when things are going to start happening in some shape or form with your event, because that's why you need the room beforehand. And then we're going to have a published start time of 10 o'clock, so that gives us an hour to get going. We'll have an end time of 11 o'clock, just to say that's when the program is going to finish. And then when the program is actually completed and we're finished with the room, then we'll go to 12:30 in that case. So these 4 times are, as I say, important because they are used by the run sheet program. And so the other aspects that is of interest is we can set up some locations. So for this event, we can say that we're going to be running it in 3 different rooms if we wanted to. That's fine. And we'll see how that operates later on. Now, people involved. This is also an important part of the way that programs are operating. The ability to be able to create a program and therefore edit and maintain the program is managed based, or is controlled based on who is responsible or who is an organizer of the event. Okay, so logic being, if you're an organizer, therefore you have, or you're responsible for the event, you have got control over this particular event in terms of when it happens and what's going on there. So this can be a group in the normal way, it can be an individual. You can just incorporate whoever you need in that, but that will give them permission. It doesn't mean to say that they have access to be able to run the or make changes to the event or stop them. Sorry, it means anybody who's not on that list can still access the event in order for looking at the run sheets. So it's only those people who are going to be making changes to those particular events and run sheets that we need to incorporate them. So we'll just include ourselves in that case, and we'll answer any questions. It's just a test site, so we'll just set the questions here. So with that, we have got our event, and our event is set up here. We can have that as a repeating event, doesn't particularly matter, it's just as long as it's an event there that you can access. Okay, so we now have an event, and so we'll now go on to setting our program. So you'll see under the events menu item, we've got a programs menu. And this is showing us any of the programs that are set up based on that current date. So it's kind of showing you stuff that's going on in advance. If you wanted to look at historical programs, then we can just choose a different date and it will show us programs from that particular date. So that's fine. Just a quick way of trying to show those events. So the next part of setting up, if we wanted to, and this is an optional step, is you can have an event series. So that series is really just a way of collating visually, and potentially we've got other options we can incorporate into that, but at least incorporate a series of events that are together. So you'd have your Sunday morning activity, for instance, that would last all year, but within that you'd have a 6-week or a 3-week series, those kind of things. So it's those 3 weeks and 6-week series we're talking about here. So we'll just add one, and we'll call the series names, seeing as I'm in a good mood, we'll call them Happy Monday. And we'll say, for sake of argument, they start and end during this particular period. And we can color code those, so you've got access to be able to color code whichever they are. That color coding is useful because it adds some visual clarification when you're looking through the screens. So we'll just use the default in that case. Okay, so we've got an event series, and you can add as many of those as you want, and you can edit and you can remove those event series. Okay, so we'll now go back to our program, and we'll start our program. So creating a program, we need to know when it's going to run in this particular case. So we're starting on the 3rd of June, and because we've got the 3rd of June, then it's showing us the same, the list that's available of events on that day that we could choose from. We can, because I've got permission to be able to add events in my role, then I'm allowed to create an event. If I didn't have that permission, I wouldn't get that option. I would simply be able to choose events. And don't forget, I'm only seeing the add screens because I've got the, and I'm choosing Monday meeting because I've got the ability to organize that particular event, or I've got permission over that event. So I'm going to click Monday meeting, and we're going to create the program. All right, so what we're looking at now is where is this particular program going to be happening from. So you could very well have your Sunday morning activity, and you're going to have a kids program, and you're going to have a main auditorium program, and you're going to have an intermediate program. They are happening at 3 different locations around the building, and so you therefore will have 3 different programs, and so this program is specific to a particular location or multiple locations if you want. These 3 are shown here because we chose those as part of the event. Again, you can see that's optional. I could choose any one of the other locations if I wanted to, but for the sake of simplicity, I'll choose auditorium at this point. You can only have 1 program per location per event. Okay, so we're now choosing the program that's going to be running in the auditorium for the Monday meeting on the 3rd of June. All right, so we'll save that. Okay, so what we're presented with now is the run sheet building program. This is a completely blank site that we've started with, so everything will be as you would see it when you first come to it. And so we can see here these timings here are taken from those times that were built in the event. So that's crucial to get those right before you come into here. So the obvious assumption is that that's going to be a fairly regular activity that you're going to be working with. You also see up here we've got the idea of the series. So to be able to identify this particular program with a series, then we can simply select that series using that button. We can edit the list from there, or we can have no series. So we can simply click on that and it will choose the series it's going to be into. That bar there is now coloured according to that colour coding that we chose earlier. And so that will be then shown in other places as well. So you can also create some notes here. So these notes are about what's happening on that particular event. If there's anything you want to communicate to people, that is basically just a placeholder, because it could end up with 2 or 3 people who are involved in building this. So this is our, just a standard meeting with no surprises. Okay, so whatever you want to put into there, it's just a free format note that you can incorporate into that, and so we can save that away. Okay, so we've now got some notes that can be visible by other people. All right, so with those 2 aspects, we can then start to create our event. So there are 3 different categories of activity here. We can see there are sections, we can see there are items, and we can see there are songs. So these songs are taken from the list of songs that we set up in the library. Okay, so if you don't have the library, then you don't get access to this particular list. Okay, so that's a key aspect that we're talking about here. All right, so there's the 2 songs that we looked at, the Build My Life and Cornerstone. There's our set list songs that we were talking about. So as I say, if you don't have the library module, then you won't get access to this songs tab. And this list here is based on your permissions in terms of what you can see. So you're only able to include items that are in the library that you can see. And so it doesn't apply to those people who are looking at the information. It's only the people who are building the set that permission structure would apply to. So a section is a collection of items that are going to be added into your run sheet, and an item is a kind of lowest level granularity in terms of what we're actually going to be incorporating. So we'll start adding some in, and the whole process is a drag and drop process. So we can add a new item, and you can see it's going to go, where do you want to include this? So we could, if we wanted to, include things before the room is set up, or indeed after. So we're going to choose it in the middle there, and it now pops us up with some information. So in this case, we're just going to have a music practice, and it's going to last for 30 minutes. Okay. We'll cover some of these other aspects in a second. So we'll add that in, and there's our music practice. You can see it's also slotted it into here. So this item is then going to be available for when you do further programs, because a music practice is going to be a fairly standard thing. And so you can therefore simply include that. So I wanted to put a couple more in, and so we then also have a sound and mic check. That's only going to take us 10 minutes. And again, that's something that we want to incorporate and use. So you can see infoodle is calculated based on the music practice of half an hour. Then this is going to start at 9:30. So that's all good. And then we want a further one just for clarity. And we'll put it in as a data and light check. Okay. Oops, I need to put in how long it's going to take. We'll take 20 minutes over that. Okay, so we've got an hour of messing about to get things organized and set up. So you can see we've got these options here. We do have the ability to edit them and to remove them from the run sheet. We are able to reorder things if we need to, so we can click on that, and you can see infoodle has recalculated the timings based on what was involved. So if you want to do things in different orders, then you can, that's fine. You can also edit the item if you want to change the text or anything, and you can delete it from the run sheet from there. Okay, so we've now got the starting point of the program. So now we've got the main event when things are actually published. Okay, so we're going to carry on, and we're going to include a welcome message here. A couple of minutes for that. And so we're now into the event because we've started at 10 o'clock. So we've said welcome to everybody, get everything going. And so now what we want to do is we want to start a section. So this section is going to be our music time, our worship time. So this is just a way of categorizing what we're doing. So we'll just put in worship into there. So again, worship starts 10:02 as we've calculated the timings there. So we're now ready to include a song. So songs that we set up earlier, we can use the search function across there, and we can drag those into our worship block here. And you can see it's asked for the name, but because it hasn't got a duration set up, it's going to ask for a duration. And so for the sake of putting a timing in here, we can set up the timing of 4.5 minutes. And having done our cornerstone, we can also then have build my life after there. And so again, we're asked for the timings on that. So we've got 3 minutes and 30 seconds on that one. Okay, so we've set up our worship time. Obviously that can continue. Again, timings are calculated as we need. You can see worship starts at 10:02 and cornerstone starts at 10:02 because this is just a placeholder for what we need to do. Again, you can drag and drop it to move it around if you want to incorporate others into that block. But it's just a visual way of being able to keep all this lot together. Because the next thing we're going to do is to put some notices into there. So we'll have that as a section. So we'll drag that section in here and we'll have some notices. You can see how that's now been separated out, so you can see it quite clearly. So we're now going to have some items. So these notices are particular items. And so when we drag a new item into here, then we'll have, we want to talk about the youth camp. Okay, so you've got 3 minutes to talk about the new youth camp. Now the youth camp is going to occur at a certain time. So our youth camp in this case is going to occur at the end of June. And so it makes sense for this particular notice to drop out of the list of items at that point, because we can imagine this list of items is going to get quite long, potentially quite long anyway, and you've got the search feature there. But it's this youth camp notice is kind of irrelevant after the end of June, so we might as well ignore that. You've also got the ability to be able to store some notes. So we do have a particular view that is applicable for those people who are doing the notices. So if they're standing up the front and giving up those notices, there may be something you as the program builder want to make sure that they cover when they're talking about it. So so remember to show the slide. Maybe we want to make sure that we ask for parent help, confirm registrations, whatever you think is appropriate. So this is just brief notes so that when the person is stood up there talking about the item, then they are briefed in terms of the key things that you want to make sure get covered. So we can add that in. So there goes our youth camp. And so then we can have an offering. Obviously that shouldn't be there. So we then have our offering, and we can take 5 minutes over the offering. We don't need to set some dates on that because it's always going to be something that we do. So we can add that in. And then we can have a fundraising event. That's going on. And we can have 5 minutes on that one. And again, that fundraising event is happening next week, so next Sunday, it's on the 7th, so we might as well stop that happening at that point. So again, we can close that off and save that. So all those things are optional, as you can see. They're just things to try and help you communicate the information that you need. So we'll then have another section here, which will have a sermon. So this will be our sermon block. And in there we can have the sermon. You can keep it generic, doesn't need to be a specific name, and with that name we can include, we can have something like 30 minutes on that. We don't need an expiry date, and we can add that away, and then we can have a standard closing message on it. So that can be your sign off kind of approach. But we may decide we want to actually include a song into there as well. We may want to do Cornerstone again, so we can drag Cornerstone into there. So you can see it didn't ask me for the duration because it already knows what that duration is. So as you can see, we've now kind of pretty much built. Once we've finished that, we can have background music just to make sure that people know what's going on. And we can have that for the rest of the time. 1 hour would be better. Okay, so there we have a run sheet. So we can drag things, move things around, add things in. If any of these items you don't want, then you can simply drag it down to the bin, and that will get rid of the item for you. So same for the sections, you can get rid of those sections if you're building up too many. So these are just templates that are used for dragging on. Once they're into the program, then they're fine. You can delete these or ignore them. There's no relationship particularly that is maintained for any other purpose at this point. So with that, we are able to just go and have a look and see what else we're doing here. So if we come back to programs, you can see that we've got our program that we set up. There's a color coding there. So if you've got multiple events occurring on the 3rd of June, or multiple programs happening on different locations maybe, then they may be part of different series, so that will show all in there, and you're able to then filter them out so you can show the particular event series that you're looking for. So yeah, that's just a helpful way of trying to filter, because you're going to end up with obviously a whole bunch of these. So we're showing anything from today onwards, and you can filter it by series. So series can come in really helpful in that respect. When we click on this, it's going to take us back to the program itself. If we had multiple programs, different locations, then we'll be able to choose that location first. So with this, we can add in different notes. So these notes here are something that is going to get communicated visually to everybody who's running the run sheet. And so we can include some particular notes about this if we wanted to. So it's just a placeholder, simple text box, final song, whatever you want to put in there. Just press enter to be able to get to it, and you can edit it again there. Okay, we can delete the program over here, that's fine. So we've set this up, and obviously you can set plenty of these up in advance. And so now what we're going to do is to have a look at it, what the musicians, potentially people who are looking at this event from their external devices, as in they're not part of the building process. And you can see up here you've got this URL, this link up here. So it just sticks live on the end of your own site. And so we're going to incorporate this into the app in the future, in the near future hopefully, so it'll be easily accessible from the app there. But you can see you've got this unique code. So this code is your code specifically for your site, and is just a simple way of being able to ensure that really only you guys are looking at these programs. There will be in read-only mode, so there's not a lot anybody could do even if they found it. So it's just a way of being able to give a bit of protection there. So when we go to live, we can switch across to our live screen. And so we are now looking at the ability to be able to, or this is the screen that will be shown when somebody accesses that live URL. So with that information, what we're able to do is put in that code. And so the code is 2494, so it's 2494. Okay, so because we've only got one event, then it's showing us this one event, and we're able to see what's going on. So this is it's not yet published, so we're able to have a look at it. There's that note that we put in the final song, and there's the breakdown of all the activity that's going on in terms of what we were looking at earlier. So you'll also see over here we've got this action. So this is available because we use library items here. By clicking on the library items, we've got access to the PDF that we set up, and we've got access to the MP3 that was included into there. So this is useful obviously for those people who are the musicians who want to practice and have a listen to what the chords are, have a listen to what it's supposed to be, and you can put multiple in. You can have multiple MP3s, multiple PDFs if there's other things you want to do. It's currently only MP3s and PDFs that are being shown on this screen, but it's really just a way of being able to have a look at that information prior to and practice prior to the actual event happening. Okay, so we've got that screen going, and so what we're able to also do, what we're able to then do is actually publish this event. So when we're back on the main screen, then we're able to see we've got this publish button up here on the top left, and when we're ready to go, we can publish that event. Okay, so we're published, and so we're now running. So it's highlighted that, and we can stop that. So you can actually publish this at any time. It's therefore effectively ready to go when you're ready. It kind of means that the site is, or the program is active, and you're happy with it in that respect. And so when we then come back to the live view, then we can see that the screen is showing a time there. It's now being published. That's all good. So while I'm here, I can show you the other screens, and you can see we've got this menu bar up on the left hand side. So with that, we can click on that, and you can see we've got different functions here. So there are currently 4 views available. So we've got, and these are geared up for different purposes really. So your full view is the one we've been looking at now. Then we've got a stage view. So a stage view isn't going to show us a lot at the moment, and I'll tell you why. The live music view isn't going to show us a lot, and the notes view is simply going to show us the activities that we've got going on at the moment. So by switching back, so people can have their own different view basically. So we'll switch back to the program view, the program builder. So when we're ready to go, then we can start it. So all we're going to do is make it active. So we've clicked on that, and we've now made it active, ready to go. And so with that, we can now switch back to the live screen. And the live screen has now, without us changing anything, is now highlighting the fact that this is the now active item that is going on. So likewise, if we switch to the stage mode, then you can see the stage mode is showing that we're doing music practice, and it's got half an hour, and we've got 29 minutes ready to go, waiting for it. And we've got sound mic check that's coming up next, which is going to last for 10 minutes. So the music screen is similar. It's going to be more focused on the information for the music, those PDFs and things, which you'll see in a minute. And the notes screen isn't going to look much different at this stage, other than showing what is actually going on. So when we are moving to the next activity, we simply go, yep, I want to make this one active. So I switch back, and I simply click on the next item. So we've clicked on make active on the sound and mic check. So by that, we can then switch back to these other screens, and the sound and mic check has now become active. Switching back to the screen, we can then make data and light check active. So by doing that, we can then see data and light has now been made active. So the goal is that these screens are just left there basically for the user to be sat there and watching and referring to as they need to. So it gives the information as we're going along. Okay, so as we're working our way through the event, it's really simply a case of clicking the make active in terms of when you're ready to go for the next thing. So this assumes that you've got somebody who is obviously controlling that, and so they're able to click on the particular activity. So we've clicked on the other screen on making the welcome message live. So as you can see, it switched across. And so now we're able to also look at seeing what's going on the other screens. So when we click on the stage view, you can see we're currently doing welcome message, and we've got a minute and a half to go. When we go over time, that'll go red and bold so that the person can see what's going on. And if we were on the music event, then we can see the welcome messages coming through onto that. So I'll switch across and I'll make Cornerstone live. So Cornerstone has now come live, and on our screen we've updated to Cornerstone, and you can see we've got access to the PDFs there. So we've got this PDF and we've got the next PDF that's ready to go. So the musicians can have access to these files if they need to. You can see they're highlighted there in terms of what they are. And you can also see the note here. That's a little note that we put in about the fact that it was the final song. So we're able to communicate little things about that as well. If we then also switch through to Build My Life, then we're switching across to Build My Life. We can see the final song is coming up there and the notices. So these screens are responsive, so they will look slightly different depending upon what device you're looking at. So you could look at it on a phone. Horizontally would be best, but it's a way of being able to communicate that. The other aspect that we've got is to be able to communicate from the organizer, the person who's running the screen, to the musicians or whoever else is watching this screen. So when we switch back to our screen, then we can see over on the right hand side we've got the ability to send a message. So new song, notices have changed. So we can send a message, notices have changed, and so when we switch back to the live view, we can see notices have changed has appeared there on the right hand side. So that will just simply show, and it's just a simple one-way communication mechanism back to the user, to the musicians or sound people, or whoever it happens to be that's looking at that. Okay, so as you're seeing, this is all real time. So what we're able to do is to influence this real time. So if we added in, if we decided we had another notice to go into there, we could simply quickly drop in a new notice, and that notice would be something that we want to do. We want to communicate to everybody. Kids program starts now. So we've forgotten to include that in our program. So that's fine. We'll include that in now. And so kids program is going to start now. So everybody will now have their screens updated when we switch back to here. It obviously doesn't affect anybody at this point because we're running that, but if we were looking at the full screen, then we can see kids program now has now been included into the program. And likewise, any reordering, sorting, adding notes, etc. will be real time, kept up to date. So really that's kind of it in terms of the program. If as you're working your way through, you're able to simply watch what's happening, keep things up to date, active, and then finally when you're finished with that or everything, then we can simply stop the program, and the program has now been stopped. You can unpublish it if you wanted to, but effectively we've now completed our run sheet program. And that's it. So there's lots more functionality that we're looking to put in, but as I said earlier, we're looking to get your feedback in terms of how this is working for you, if it's likely that if we're hitting the right spot in terms of being useful and being able to keep the communication going between people. So we look forward to hearing your feedback.